40%. Or 245 families.
One more time, testing, 1, 2, 3. I'm seeing closed captioning. Can the people in Zoom hear me? Can you raise your hand if you can hear me? Yes, I got it. Thank you. Thank you, Zoom folks. Okay.
Okay, we ready to resume?
Yes, we did have 2 speakers, Avion and then I believe Ed. So go ahead, Avion. You're on mute. Hello? I'll come back to you. Miss Marilyn Price? Miss Marilyn Price?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Okay. All right, here. I recently responded to a Nextdoor post that contained angry comments about the MMWD new rates. I'm going to read you my message and a couple comments I received back. These comments indicate to me that there is a need for lots more public information on our water issue and the importance of conservation. My comments was to the angry folk. I encourage all to log on to the MMWD site and study our water situation so you understand what's going on. Our house consists of a family of 4, including a teenager, and because of simple, not expensive conservation efforts that we've used for many years, our bill only went up $18. I also encourage everyone to study conservation measures we can all take. MMWD and environmental groups recommend lots of them. One reply I received was, I've taken every conservation measures, thank you, and I can't imagine the use of the same amount of water only brought an $18 increased charge to you and your family. Wow, when so many of us are being charged twice as much for the same usage. My essential point is there seems to be no reasonable and fair construct behind the recent wild charges we each individually receive. Another reply was, that's amazing. A family of 4 billed only $137. I did the math and figured for your household, all you would have used for the 4 of you was 7 units of water over 2 months. I'm one person and I thought I conserved water fairly well, using 23 units versus 24 this time last year. How could you 4 use only 7 units of water? I believe you, but you're stretching that belief quite a bit. My reply was, I checked our bill again. We did only use 7 units of water and 7 units in the previous 2 months. We do have outdoor plants around the home, but with few exceptions, I only water them with water I save from the kitchen sink, and very little goes down that sink. I save all my bath water to flush toilets. My upstairs family of 3 does not save their bath and kitchen water, but they are very conscious of their indoor water use. I've been saving water since the drought in the 70s, when I realized that water is also a big user of energy and should be conserved, even if we are not in a drought. It has become a way of life. The reply back from the second person who was telling me how much water he used was, you're a miracle. I want what she's having. In closing, I'll say, I hope the 2 who replied and others on the post realize that by saving water, they can save energy, their money, and help our planet at the same time. And that with good tools, we can educate many others too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Ed, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. I have some comments on the district's conservation programs. Several programs' participation levels have fallen well below SWSC assumed levels, reflecting waning post-drought uptake. The laundry to landscape and pool cover programs have almost no participation, and the rain barrel program saves insignificant water. Last November, conservation consultant Madaus recommended that all 3 programs be removed from the water conservation element plan because their potential water savings are trivial. Several of the district's conservation programs are absurdly expensive. Mandatory participation under the Graywater Ordinance in laundry to landscape at a cost of about $24,000 an acre foot, or rain barrels at about $86,000 an acre foot is indefensible. And if only 1 out of 5 of these people forced to install such a system actually uses it, the costs soar to about $100,000 per acre foot for laundry to landscape and to about $300,000 per acre foot for rain barrels. Requiring new homes and major remodels to install these programs is an unconscionable waste of ratepayers' money. The board needs to rescind the absurdly expensive mandatory 2016 Greywater ordinance. And adding an alternative and installing mandatory Las Vegas-style landscape is equally unacceptable. There are very few new single-family homes built in Marin. Those few owners should have the right to put in the kind of landscaping they want. And the 2015 mandatory requirement for new homes and major remodels to have Las Vegas-style landscaping also needs to be rescinded. It is an unjustifiable example of regulatory overreach and is inappropriate for Marin. Finally, according to my water bill, I am spot on average water user. My September water bill was up 68% over last year on the same usage of water. Many people are shocked at the July price increases, but I doubt that many are aware that there are 3 more years of significant price increases that are already locked in. I understand the need for higher rates, but with such increases imposed on ratepayers, it is even more important that the board demonstrate fiscal responsibility and rescind the 2015 and 2016 ordinances in next week's Water Efficiency Plan meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Miss Mimi Willard, please.
Yes, can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Thank you. So I want to just encourage you to take seriously and to act upon Ed Jameson's incisive criticism of certain of the conservation programs that are wildly costly and contribute relatively little in terms of water savings. MMWD was, as you know, until very recently flirting with insolvency. With the big rate increases recently imposed, you can't afford to fritter away our money or our goodwill on virtue signaling, nor mandate that we ratepayers do so on our properties with our money. I have endorsed and continue to endorse rate increases if they are used to restore fiscal solvency and secure our water supply. That said, many ratepayers, as you know, currently aren't so forgiving. Nextdoor continues to be full of outrage posts from people whose water bills have reportedly risen 50 to 100%. Maybe some of them use more water than you approve of. Well, but perhaps they can't afford to re-landscape yet. In any event, you have many upset customers who should rightfully expect that their higher bills fund the highest priorities. Some of the conservation programs don't make the cut and should be cut. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to try again one more. Avian, please. Okay, that's all I have for public comment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Lashinsky, John Lashinsky would like to comment. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. John Lashinsky, please. I've unmuted.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Jed, are you there? I can't see. Jed, which one's you? There you are. Hi, we met at the Presbyterian Church praying for rain. You remember that? Okay. Anyway, a comment and a question. First of all, the comment is new sources of potable water supply. You only have one new source for potable water, and that's called rain. Everything else is derivative of that. So that brings up my question. When are you going to start the project to build a desalination plant, which would give you a second new source of potable water?
We cannot answer that. Do you want to continue with a comment though?
Well, yeah. Okay. So where are we on Jed, when he was at that meeting at the church with the rest of us? He was talking about desalination right at the very end of the meeting. And I didn't have a chance to explore his brief comments at the end of that meeting. Seemed like he was for it. Where are we with the desalination plant? That is really only only other new source of water that I can think of. I mean, putting a pipe into an existing reservoir and then transferring the water to another reservoir to put someplace else is not a new source. That's using existing sources. So desalination should be top on your priority. Where are you in your thinking on that?
Right. Thank you, sir.
Just one more comment real quick. The propositions that allow, or the measures that allow you to move forward on a plant are still in effect. You can start a project to build a desalination plant. You just can't start building it until you get a second approval from the taxpayers. So I'd like to know where you are on that.
Thank you, sir. We have that down. Thank you. There are no further speakers.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Okay, we've got directors and general managers announcements. Why don't I start to the right and move to the left? So Matt, do you have anything?
Yeah, good evening. Thanks, Director Schmidt. Just two things. One, I was able to attend the Lagunitas TAC committee meeting last Friday virtually. I think it's going to be the last one virtual, but wanted to just recognize the district's watershed staff, specifically with the fisheries and all the work they did and the great presentation they gave to the TAC group and the continued well representation from that group at that meeting. So thank you. And then the next one would be a request about highlighting our rate calculator that we worked on through the rate setting process on the website, making it more, I guess, easily located so folks can actually take a look at what their bills are going to be and start calculating, especially if they look to reduce their water use, what that would do to their bill. So that would be helpful. That's all. Thank you.
Rajiv?
Hi, everybody. Last Friday, November 3rd, Larry and I participated in the North Bay Watershed Association meeting. Larry, I'll give a couple of comments from my side and you can fill in all the other important stuff. The main take home for me was a presentation from a Sonoma State University professor who's affiliated with their Center for Environmental Inquiry. And his goal is, and the goal of that center at Sonoma State is to build bridges between the classroom and practical action-oriented activities. The specific relevance for us, I think, and for the broader water sector here in Marin and Sonoma is that they have a Waters Collaborative, which is a collaboration between Sonoma Water Agency and the center at Sonoma State, where they're involving students in research around flood modeling and control, invasive aquatics, land use planning, and then he spent some time on their Rising Waters Initiative, which addresses the impact of homelessness on watersheds, primarily with respect to water quality. I think the theme of that, which is interesting, is just that that collaboration between research and academic centers and very practical water agencies. Bringing the science and more into our scope. Interesting to see that happening in Sonoma. Just wanted to flag that and just note that, I think we shouldn't lose sight of those opportunities if they come up for us. Thank you.
Chet?
Greetings, everyone. On Thursday, October 26th, the Finance Administration Committee had a meeting and met. The staff announced the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Restoration program has granted us $4.6 million to implement phase 1 of the Lagunitas Creek Coho Enhancement Project. We were super thrilled and proud of our team for the work that they've done. This includes funding for a limited term position for a natural resource technician to support the compliance monitoring requirements associated with the project. So this item was referred to tonight's board meeting for the consent calendar, requesting that the board adopt a resolution to formally accept the grant and enter into a grant agreement with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. We also went through our monthly financials that was provided by Brett, our finance director, and the public may view the meeting on our website with the October 26th FAC meeting. That was that. And then yesterday morning, I was attended the Water Advisory Committee and Technical Advisory Committee up in Sonoma at Santa Rosa with Director Russell, and feel free to make additional comments if you wish. It was a robust meeting that started with a discussion of their budget and their revenues, which frankly looked exactly like ours last year. Slightly under on the top line, under on expenses. But they're withstanding some very difficult financial times, and I think it was extremely open meeting and discussion and well reported. We also went through the different water supply plans and contingency plans that they have, and their reservoirs and their current status, which like ours are quite full. We went through the Sonoma and Marin Water Savings Partnership. Proud to see Paul and his team alongside of theirs, both receiving the WaterSense 2023 EPA award, which we announced a month or two ago here. So that partnership's in full swing. Then we discussed the letters of support for the Potter Valley project that was provided an update from Grant Davis and others. There was some discussion about the importance of making sure that there was significant thought process put into the ecological impact of all of the different moves of decommissioning that dam and providing adequate support for the fisheries, both either through one of a couple of different options that they're looking at. I think there was some view in the meeting that the letter was a little bit overweighted towards water supply and maybe underweighted towards the environmental impact. But there was extraordinary empathy from Supervisor Rabbit and others towards the environmental community, and they've been working on this for a long time, and I think it was a very healthy discussion. Lastly, we talked about integrated water management projects and plans with North Marin and Tony, the general manager there, reporting out, and Grant Davis commenting as well. And I think and then they reported on some trips that they had to Washington, D.C., which reminded me of the trips that we have had recently. I made a comment that I think resonated with the group quite well, which is that for years, Marin and Sonoma have had a difficult relationship. We did not help invest in the creation of Stafford Lake up in Nevada. We did not help in the funding of Lake Sonoma. And therefore, we're sitting around a table where when you looked at the finances, we provide approximately 17% of the revenues for Sonoma Water. But this is extremely profitable money, yet our water mostly is taken from the winter water. So it has a very little impact on their actual storage. And therefore, we are actually quite critical to their financial success. Yet we don't have a vote around the table, and there's been a history of kind of, I think, pointing fingers at each other. My goal in my comments in that meeting were to change that dynamic and that discourse from looking at the past to moving forward, to hoping that we'll start a new day where Marin can be viewed as partnering with them, as helping invest in the infrastructure from a regional perspective. It's what we heard in DC. It is what Rabbit heard in DC. The more we lock arms, the more we work together, the less competitive we are for DC funds, and the more we can help resiliency for Sonoma and help resiliency for Marin. So I'm hopeful that with the projects that we're doing with the feasibility studies and our water supply roadmap, that will serve our community well, and it'll be well received. So it was a very healthy meeting, and there's a lot of heads nodding.
All right, thank you, Larry.
I also attended the NBWA meeting and the WAC meeting. A couple of things stood out. I think that the County of Sonoma is trying to address the homeless issue at least a little bit. They have made an interesting discovery, which is that homeless head towards the creeks or rivers because they have access to water. And that then led them to a logical conclusion, which has been well shown, that these kind of encampments impact water quality pretty significantly. I commented that I thought that one of the things that was missing in their approach was that they needed really to think about public sanitation and public toilets that are accessible to people, including people that are not homeless. I think that's something we're really dropping the ball on as a society. In the WAC meeting, it was an interesting meeting. There were a couple of things that stood out to me. One, which I really wasn't aware of, that Sonoma at least stated that they reduced their costs 16% last year due to 16% drop in income. So that was kind of news to me, but that was what they laid out. The second thing they talked about, which I thought was quite interesting, was Brad Sherman opened his arms to us and others to come in and talk about their expenses. So I've never heard them say that before, but I'm sure it's, not as fruitful as it might be, but at least it's a door opening to the subject I've been harping about for at least 10 years, about some kind of a accountancy from them of showing how they're spending our money. So I think that was really helpful. I think that was a really good sign. So that's the news.
Okay, thank you, Larry. I'll just add, so I also attended the Lagunitas TAC meeting, and I just want to, recognize again the really important work that our staff does, in supporting the Lagunitas Technical Advisory Committee. Obviously, we do a great deal of work on Lagunitas Creek, and so we're centrally important to that group for that reason. But also just in terms of staffing and showing up and supporting that committee. It's a really fantastic group. It covers really important information. It really helps, I think, it makes our programs better. I think it helps attract the kind of funding that Jed was just talking about, and really highlights us as leaders in protecting and stewarding our Lagunitas Creek and salmon runs. I also attended the Marin County Parks Volunteer Appreciation Day, also with our staff, MMWD staff, and it was at Paradise Park and it was an incredibly beautiful day. And I just really appreciate all of the staff, both at Marin County Parks as well as MMWD, who helped put that event together. That's all I've got. Ben, do you have anything?
Briefly share, I went to yesterday the California Water Reuse Conference. Interested to really understand and talk to the players on what's going on in regards to potable reuse in California. I'll just summarize it a lot, and it's very exciting. It feels almost transformational over time for our industry. Staff will be, as the board's aware, bringing an update on water recycling, kind of all things water recycling, and we'll bring details of what folks are doing down largely in Southern California, but it is really interesting and exciting to see.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'll be interested to hear that update. Okay, with that, we'll move on to our consent calendar. Can I get a motion to adopt our consent items?
So moved.
Terry, do we have any comments on our consent items?
Yes, 1402. Let me go ahead and go ahead. 1402. I've unmuted your speaking.
Yes, James Holmes, Larkspur. My concern, which I wish I had mentioned earlier, is whether by applying for these large grants that are the subject of consent calendar, we are in any respect prejudicing ourselves if we later ask for relief from the 1985 Water Board order that restricts our storage ability. Is it possible that the state could say that they gave us so much money for fish habitat that we can't turn around and prioritize water supply over fish habitat? More specifically, do these grants somehow stop us from seeking relief, or do they commit us to continue the current releases? These grants seem to be a pretty heavy investment to further the interests of fish. At some point, the interests of fish and the interests of water storage and water customers are going to conflict if they are not already in conflict. Let's be sure that these grants and the investments that they enable do not prevent us from seeking to escape from the water storage straitjacket we are now in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There are no further speakers.
Okay, Terry, could we get a roll call, please?
Yes, Vice President Kush,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Sampson,
Aye.
Director Smith.
Aye.
And President Schmidt.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to our regular items. And let's see, first up,
Mhm.
we have our approval of the memorandum of understanding with the Service Employees International Union, Local 1021. Vicky, you'll be covering that? All right, thank you.
Good evening. I'm actually here to ask for approval of a few items here. One, as you mentioned, Director Schmidt, requesting approval for the tentatively agreed upon memorandum of understanding between SEIU and the Marin Municipal Water District. And this tentative agreement establishes salaries and terms and conditions of employment for represented employees, and that contract will go through June 30, 2027. Also, requesting approval for a resolution establishing salaries and other terms and conditions of employment for unrepresented, mid-management, and confidential employees through June 30, 2027. Amendments to the employment contracts for the general manager and general counsel to align those with certain changes to the unrepresented employee terms and conditions of employment. And a resolution to phase out the employer paid member contribution, and also the updated salary schedule for all employees. And just to provide a little background, the district entered into negotiations with SEIU back in April 2023. And as a result, we have a new contract or tentative agreement rather here. And again, we addressed issues of terms and conditions of employment. And let's see, I think I covered all of that already, that the contract will go through June 2027. Some of the items in the contract, the tentative agreement, are updated uniform allowances, boot allowances, a recognition of Juneteenth as a holiday for district employees, changes to retiree healthcare and dental benefits for new employees hired after January 1, 2024. So district employees hired after January 1, 2024, the proposal will phase in a graduated vesting schedule for healthcare benefits in retirement. It will cap the benefits received in retirement and reduce benefits for spouses. In an effort to keep pace with inflation, the MOU proposes that we cost of living increases for the years 2023, 24, 25, and 26. The COLA will be based on the Consumer Price Index. And for fiscal years 24 and 25, there will be a 0.75% increase above the cost of living index. The COLA shall be no more than 5% and no less than 2%. So these are a few notable changes proposed in the tentative agreement. The tentative agreement was approved by SEIU members on October 24th. And today, again, I'm asking for board approval for this tentative agreement, and that will ratify the contract. Staff is also recommending that the board approve the resolution covering unrepresented employees, and their terms and conditions of employment are contained in the resolution attached to the board packet. The resolution typically adopts terms consistent with the MOU. And so that's why we're asking for that in a package here. The terms of the general manager's contract and the general counsel contract also should align with the unrepresented group. So we're asking for you to approve amendments to their contract. Additionally, staff is asking are proposing a resolution to commence a phase out of the employer-paid member contribution. This is a contribution by the employer to pay for the employee's responsible portion, where the portion that the employee is responsible for in terms of their retirement contribution. Currently, only district division directors and the general counsel covered under the CalPERS Classic Retirement Program qualify for the EPMC, the employer paid member contribution. With approval of this resolution to phase out, the salary will be offset and the phase out will take 4 years. A copy of the resolution to phase out the EPMC is included in the staff report as well. So staff recommends approving all of the items discussed in this report.
Okay, thank you. Director's comments. We'll start to the left here.
I just wanted to thank the district folks that were involved in the negotiation, along with the folks from the union that were involved in negotiation. I'm glad things have come to an agreement. I understand everybody may not be completely happy, but with that said, I think it's a good, solid piece of work that'll allow us to move forward without disruption. Thank you.
Jed?
Yeah, thank you, Larry. And I'll pile onto that. I think this is an opportunity for our represented staff, our unrepresented staff, our leadership team, the board to all lock arms and move in one direction. I think we have an opportunity to learn from the past and move forward in as positive a light as possible. We have so much to do in the months and years to come that it's time for us to have better open communication, get the best ideas to the top, and be super thoughtful about supporting each other, because this is a really important time, historic time for us. So I'm proud to be working with every single person in this agency, top to bottom, equally. I do have a question about the general manager and GC's contracts, and I'm just wondering, is that something that we talk about in closed session, or like, do we talk about our comments about what we may or may not like about that here, or because we did with obviously the other compensation matters, they typically are, and this kind of came out of the blue, and we haven't talked about it much at all.
So these contract amendments don't actually propose salary adjustments. They simply align the benefits with the unrepresented package. The contracts, the way they were already written, many of those would follow the unrepresented or the manager changes. This is just to clarify that and to resolve some of the inconsistencies. In particular, it does set a different index. It aligns the index, actually the consumer price index, CPIU, as opposed to CPIW, but it's not actually a cost increase that would be discussed in closed session. So hopefully that answers your question.
I guess so is only a cost increase would be something we would talk about in closed. It just seems a little awkward to talk about your two contracts and with you and in the room from a protocol perspective. That doesn't seem right.
Well,
but I'm used to a different kind of compensation committee. So
it is a public agendized item, and it does have to be acted upon as a public matter, as would any compensation increase that's not just tied to an index, for example. So indexed COLA increases, those can be adopted as a matter of course, but any merit adjustment, for example, would have to be specifically mentioned and discussed in open session. So this is pretty standard practice for how executive manager contracts are handled.
Which is different than unrepresented.
Yes, typically different than unrepresented because they're at-will contracts.
All good. Ranjit?
Yeah, thanks, Vicky, for that summary. You know, I when we started this process, I was surprised to learn that there hadn't been an MOU process since 2013. But, you know, I think going through the last 6 months of discussion and negotiation, probably, I'm not as surprised that we don't do it very often, because it was a difficult discussion at times, and the negotiations, were complicated, and it's obviously because so many factors had to be considered in these discussions, often opposing. And, at the same time, we hear a lot. We are still going to be hearing a lot about higher water rates and the impacts on affordability. But at the end of the day, I hope everyone remembers the obvious, that we are only our staff. This organization is only our staff. I think we did work well together, despite the ups and downs, to arrive at the current MOU. It wasn't always easy, but we've gotten here. And as Jed said, I think that's a really good indicator of our ability to work together on other complicated, difficult issues that the district is going to be facing going forward.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you. Yep. This has been a long and laborious process. As mentioned, April 2023 is when it started, and here we find ourselves just a week or two before Thanksgiving. So this process has been long and laborious, like stated, but it's also critical to the health of the organization. And I think in a few different ways, but it was important, at least I think from my perspective, to balance the district's financial strengths with the appropriate compensation for our current employees, as well as future employees. And I believe these agreements do so. As Director Cush mentioned, it's been a decade since the last true negotiations, and a lot has changed since then. And that results in a significant amount of work that needs to do to update and then modernize our MOUs with our employees. And I'm happy that we're able to work towards an agreed upon solution. I do want to thank the district staff in particular. Jared did quite a bit of work, Vicki, yourself, Brett, Molly, and our GM too. So thank you very much. I know this has been a big workload for you. And then thank you all to the SEIU negotiating team, specifically Mariette and Aaron. We appreciate all of your work on your end too, as well as all the folks in the unrepresented group. And I do think it needs to be acknowledged in public that this MOU resulted in significant concessions by labor that will positively impact the financial health of the organization as we move forward. And that's important to the sustainability of what we're trying to do here. And that doesn't go unnoticed. And so we appreciate the negotiation part on that. I think we better align ourselves now with industry standards and the public sector best practices. And I think that's good for the organization moving forward. I know there's been some talk about some certain job classifications that we need to look at prior to the end of the year. So I hope we're able to do that through some surveying, and then bring those results back to the board before the calendar year to make sure everything's cleaned up. But overall, I'm excited to move forward. We can put this part behind us, and we've laid the foundation now to move on a bunch of stuff that we need to do, including modernizing the district, enhancing our infrastructure, finding more water. And we have a fantastic team of employees that I hope feel that they're actually respected through this to help us do that, because that's going to be the success of this. And I just want to make one comment on Director Smith's comments. I think when we're reviewing all the compensation packages, it would be good to review prior to an agreement or an actual decision on that. I think it's good for us to be able to review, especially seeing them for the first time, and understand that exactly what changes are doing what, so we have a better understanding what we're voting on. So thank you.
Great. I'll just end with that one and just say I'd like also to make sure that we take the time to look at the compensation package just before we make a decision on that. And great comments by all the board members. I won't belabor it, but to say that I have deep appreciation for all the staff that was involved in this, and both the leadership team, the represented members, Mariette and others from the union who showed up. I think honestly, also the union members who came on several nights to express their feelings, their experiences. That matters to us. We listen. We appreciate them coming after work and taking the time to talk about the importance of the negotiations. The fact that we hadn't been through this for 10 years, a lot of things needed to be cleaned up. A lot of industry standards have changed. And frankly, even I think the district has changed in the last 10 years. There have been changes in leadership, changes in board members, and changes in our circumstances as we've been through two very, very substantial droughts that have changed the way we look at our core mission of providing water supply. So there was a lot to be addressed, and I think that the spirit underlying all of it is how to be a really strong district. And if we're going to achieve the things that we are setting out, that we have set out to do, particularly in this last year with our strategic water supply assessment, we need to do that as one district, top to bottom, all of us working committed to serving our community and achieving what we can do. And I think we're on great footing to do that. And I hope that this MOU helps us to all get onto the same page and feel as one team and address things that need to be addressed to make sure that the district is on sound financial footing, and much appreciation to the things that the union was willing to concede on in order for us to achieve that. It's much appreciated. I think also some of the things changes that we made to show greater respect and appreciation for our staff and how important they are. So I'm hopeful that we are launching from here in a much better place to do a lot of really great work for our community. So
I have another comment. I think there's a misconception here that it isn't as though nothing was done since 2013. Each time the contract expired, there was an intense negotiation between the union and the district to arrive at the terms which allowed the original contract to be extended.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't though it just shoved aside and nothing happened. There were, I would say, basically as intense negotiations as the ones in this event. They didn't take as long because they were more limited in scope, but they did address the concerns of the district and the union in the same format as what we did in this one. So as I recall, that happened at least 3 times between those 2 periods of time. So it wasn't just left aside, it was actively negotiated, and I wouldn't be surprised that happens again in 27, but we shall see. Thanks.
Thank you, Larry, for clarifying that. It's important. Okay, are there any other board member comments? Are there any public comments?
Yes, there are 2. Marriott Shin and then Aaron Burton.
Hello, I'm Marriott Shin. I'm a union steward, and I'm also on the union bargaining team of the contract that was just negotiated. And I want to thank everybody for their contributions. And I felt like it was important for me to be here to make some kind of closing comments about it. It was a very difficult and challenging process, but we came out okay at the end. I want to thank the board for the movement made towards union employees to reach a fair contract agreement. I also want to recognize the hard work and contributions of my fellow union members, the fellow bargaining team members, and of the board and district team members. Thank you mostly for recognizing the value of the district workforce, which was clear in the final agreement or tentative agreement. It was not an easy process at all, and it was contentious at times, as negotiations can be. But through compromise on both sides and dedicated and tireless effort, we were able to find a good middle ground. As you know, there were distribution system operators who were not included in the contract's equity adjustment due to a misunderstanding. But I thank you for your promise to conduct a salary study for those outstanding DSOs and your commitment to address any discrepancies that the results of the study may reveal. We hope the district will complete that last leg of the journey so that we can truly put the negotiations firmly behind us and move towards a brighter future, united and working together as a team on all the work that we have cut out for us in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marriott.
Good evening, Board of Directors. My name's Alan Burden. I'm the field representative with SCIU. I just want to thank each of you on behalf of SCIU members for reaching an agreement which invests in your workforce while also being responsible stewards of ratepayers' money. as you know, our members carry out the essential functions, essential duties, critical responsibilities of the district's day-to-day work, which helps to keep our community healthy and safe. Our union and your employees believe that healthcare is a right, not merely a benefit. But we also want, with that being said, we want to thank the district for working with us to safeguard retiree health. We made concessions, substantial concessions, in the interest of safeguarding this benefit for future workers. And also to help ensure that the water district remains competitive, but also more importantly than being competitive, but also being moral, being a moral employer. So we want to recommend that you please vote yes on agenda item number 8A, which is the tentative agreement between SEIU and MMWD, along with other items. Thank you for your time, and once again, thank you for working with us. And we look forward to continuing this project into the future. Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Aaron.
There are no further speakers.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Then I think we need a roll call vote.
I need a motion.
Oh, sorry.
Motion to approve.
Yes, motion to approve.
8A.
Just one clarifying question. Is motion to approve all of these?
So you can do it multiple ways. If there are no items to be pulled for separate vote, then you can make a motion to approve the entire package in one fell swoop, so to speak, or you can take them separately if there's an interest in doing so.
Do the board members want to do it as a packet, or would anybody like to do it individually?
Can I make just one comment on the concerns here? I do want to note that we did receive an email that, outlined the items that are being brought to us today. So certainly that didn't allow for a discussion on those things, as some have raised, but we were informed prior to this. So just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. So with the board members, does anybody like to separate these out? Otherwise, we do this as one motion.
I make a motion to approve them all as one item.
Okay. Get a second?
Second.
Okay. Now I think we are ready, Terry. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Kush,
Aye.
Director Sampson,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Smith,
Aye.
and President Schmidt.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we are on to our next agenda item, which is the wildfire season preparation update.
Good evening, board member Sean Horn, Watershed Resources Manager. I'm going to provide a presentation for you all this evening, which is our wildfire season preparedness. So the outline that we've got for you here is we're going to provide a little bit of background and connect this to the wildfire resiliency study the district did in 2021, specifically around the preparedness that we do in front of wildfire season, talk about some of those activities that have been going on for the last few months, and then highlight some of our watershed management activities, facilities, and then the broader partnership planning and fundraising opportunities. So in 2021, the district developed a wildfire resiliency study, and the infographic at the bottom kind of gives you an outline of what this looked like as we evaluated the various assets the district has, dove deep into the data and worked with each of the work groups to understand risks and identify mitigation strategies and come up with a plan for taking action. So what we're going to talk about tonight is mostly around section 5, which was the planning preparedness, and specifically what we've been doing for the last 12 months or so to get in line for wildfire season. So one of the things that we do each year is our rangers are active in making sure that all of our wildland firefighters are trained appropriately. And so that starts with an annual refresher training. ahead of the season, and then monthly trainings throughout the wild and fire season. And then we also work with our local fire departments on various training opportunities on the watershed. The most recent one we did was portable pumps on the lakes to make sure that everyone was kind of trained up on how to deploy those and utilize those with our boats, and have some coordination in those operations. In the last couple of years, we've had staff on the watershed become resource advisors, and that's kind of a new thing that comes out of national parks, where you want to have staff that are trained and red carded, but also have kind of that local knowledge around biological, cultural resource, and critical assets, so that you can show up on the fire line and help the initial responders understand how to do operations in a way that might limit the impacts that it can have, and then also be there for the restoration after the fact to help guide that work. So we've got 3 staff now that are trained in that and are continuing to update those trainings. And that's also going on with the collaborative effort through the One TAM Collaborative, where all the One TAM agencies have actually started bringing together their GIS data to make sure this is kind of centrally located and available and ready to deploy if needed. So we've also got wildfire signs on the watershed that the district rangers operate and maintain. We deploy more as needed. This last year, we've worked with our communications department on website and social media outreach. And then public notifications. We do a lot of this when we're doing our prescribed fire or our pile burning operations. And then we also have red flag events, and our rangers do closures at times and restrict use on the watershed where appropriate and needed. We have a lot of equipment that we maintain operational in order to help with initial response. So kind of an inventory of what we've got going right now, where all of our rangers are equipped with wild and fire fighting type 6 and type 7 engines. We're adding a type 7 to our fleet, and that's in response or in support of hiring an additional ranger into the group. And then we've also got a water tender that's got 2,000 gallon capabilities for responding. It's one of the only 4-wheel drive water tenders in the county, so it's a critical kind of asset for everyone. We have a wild and fire engine type 3, and then we've got a boat that our rangers deploy, portable pumps, and a dozer and operator that are able to support response activities. At the last watershed committee meeting, we provided an update on our biodiversity, fires, and fuels integrated plan and the work that we've done under that document since 2019. The map on the right is kind of highlighting all the work that's been done since that document was adopted and what's planned out until 2026. And that's really to show kind of our grant fundraising efforts and kind of identify all the project work that we've been able to put on the ground and plan to implement under that plan. And then this is just kind of a summary of the kind of key components of that plan that have been implemented over the last 12 months or so. A key component of our BIFIP was to bring back beneficial fire to the landscape. And so we have not implemented a prescribed fire on the watershed for over 10 years. And the BIFIP provided us the compliance document we needed in order to move forward with that kind of activity. And so we've been doing a lot of planning over the last couple of years to get ourselves in line to implement these types of projects. We've done site evaluations to better understand kind of our ecological goals as well as our fuel reduction goals, developed 4 prescribed fire plans for the watershed, been consulting with the Federated Indians of Great and Rancheria to help guide that activity and make sure that we're protecting cultural resources and taking kind of cultural knowledge and incorporating that into our work. Getting Bay Area air quality control permits for our prescribed fire and our pile burning as well, and then working on our communication and outreach. And this sign, what happened here, is kind of an example of that, where after this most recent prescribed fire that we implemented at Rock Springs, we've deployed this sign to help people kind of understand what the project was and when it was done and why. We also do fuel moisture monitoring in all of these plots and these project sites that we developed, and we have ongoing coordination with County Fire around implementation. Pre-project vegetation treatments, it's important to understand that before we're putting fire on the ground on the watershed, we're going in and actually doing pre-work to reduce the kind of fuel loads and also kind of arrange that fuel so it will burn more evenly. And then also to make sure that we can protect some of those, unique assets that we do have in terms of heritage trees on the watershed when those operations are happening. So huge success this year that we were able to implement a prescribed fire with County Fire, an 11-acre project site at Rock Springs at Ridgecrest. We've got another 20-acre component of that same project that we're looking to move forward with. We might have missed our little window for this season, but we're continuing our coordination with County Fire for opportunities in the next season. And then we'll continue to look for opportunities to do our pre-treatments and monitor moisture levels to see when that can be implemented. So in addition to vegetation management, we also do our fire road and emergency access improvements. We did a number of projects this last year, one of those being the Sky Oaks retaining wall. We had a major failure in the last winter storm on Warren Springs Road, and we've completed a slide repair there. We've also, in our Azalea Hill Trail restoration project, completed a retaining wall as part of that effort. And then in terms of fire road improvements that we've done this year, we implemented the concrete pipe, Shaver, and Bon Tempe. All were improved, basically hardened with rock and making them more accessible. And then we were able to implement 7 culvert repairs this summer. And 1 emergency repair on Cross Marin Trail as well. And then an ongoing need is down trees. Every storm that we have more down trees. So we wanted to provide a few examples of kind of what those projects looked like. On the left-hand side, you can see the before and after Warren Springs retaining wall project. In the middle, we've got just some examples of the down tree projects that our crews have maintained. The left one on Kent Pump Road, and then the right one on Shafter Road. And then we've got our examples of our culvert replacement activities that are going on. We also have PG&E lines that go through the watershed. We have about 17 miles or so. We track PG&E's work through permits onto the watershed. Those permits allow us to make sure that they're doing environmental compliance ahead of their work. And so this last year, 12 acres of vegetation management happened under 2.5 miles of line. And then we also permitted equipment and replacement of equipment on their power poles. Off the watershed, we have facilities. Vegetation management happens around our critical facilities, pump stations, tanks, and the such. So we did 20 sites of tree pruning. About a quarter of those required additional treatments, so 2 to 3 treatments per site. We did 18 pump stations where broom was managed or ladder fuel work was completed, and then 192 sites of defensible space. Just some examples of what that fine fuel management looks like kind of as we move out into the urban interface. And then as part of our engineering department has done a number of water system improvements that have been helpful. One of those major ones that you've all heard about is completing the permanent generator at San Geronimo Treatment Plant, a major project. Also removing some of the redwood tanks from our system, completed 3 valve cluster installations on transmission lines, replaced 3.1 miles of pipeline, improving fire flow and system resiliency, and then added mobile generators to the fleet to make sure that we have operations if there are power outages. Now, beyond kind of what we do on our facilities and our lands, there's a lot of coordination that goes on in the community to help them understand how they can be prepared and what they can do. Fire Safe Marin's a key component that starts working at the parcel level. That's really the place that we need that community support to create those Firewise communities doing that hardening of the home. So we participate in the annual Ember Stomp event that they host. Excuse me. And then we also are part of the board of Fire Safe Marin. We also participate with Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority as on their advisory technical committee. And we've worked collaboratively with them in this last year to do vegetation management on the watershed as part of some of the fuel breaks that they're building, specifically the Ross Valley fuel break. In addition to that, the public land managers in Marin are collaborating as part of the One Tam Forest Health Strategy, and that was a document that was finalized this year. We reported out to one of the watershed committee meetings a couple months ago about that progress on that document. In support of that, we've done forestry tours with various stakeholder groups and agency folks. We've had the TAM van, which you've all heard and seen, out on the watershed, conducting outreach with the community around some of the work that we're doing, and then also developed some self-guided tours that people can do around Lake Lagunitas to help them understand why we're doing this forest restoration work on the watershed. There's also project coordination with County Fire, not just around prescribed fire, but also some of the work that they're doing in the WUI, and then outreach with various stakeholders, some of those funding, CAL FIRE and the Coastal Conservancy. We've hosted a number of kind of collaborative regional workshops through Together Bay Area. And then today we had a Fire Resiliency Lands Alliance tour on the watershed where we had about 70 people from various land management agencies and fire agencies throughout the Bay Area coming together. And this is the second one of these meetings that's happened. The last one was in the East Bay and we were the second site. And so they were at Lake Lagunitas today looking at the work and kind of developing that collaborative language and understanding and how we can move this work forward throughout the Bay Area. And then also our local stakeholder groups giving presentations and updating them on the work that we're doing on the watershed. So this last year, we made a big improvement to our BIFIP by doing an addendum, taking the wildfire modeling work that we did over the past year, and then making some amendments to our operations to increase the pace and scale of that work, and also move forward with our prescribed burn planning and implementation. As I mentioned, the forest health strategy has been updated. The district's been working towards the strategic water supply roadmap and completing that to identify opportunities and advance some new projects. We've been focused on our watershed recreation management planning process, really thinking about people on the watershed and how we can create stewardship around our landscapes and minimize risk. Also continuing our water system master planning process. We have 700 culverts on the watershed. So we've got a permit package for 70 additional culverts to replace. We're working with our CDFW and the regional board to get those in place for the next couple of years. And then all the biological monitoring that we do on the watershed, we've been working for the last 2.5 years or so to feed that up into this update of the peak health report. And the key component of that is it identifies new areas that the collaborative can work in. And one of the areas that we identified in the last peak health report was forest resiliency and forest health. And so now you see this giant document coming out of that kind of information and data gap need, which is great to see. And then completed a watershed hydrology model in this last drought period, which is helpful for our planning processes. So in terms of fundraising, the district's heavily investing in our watershed in terms of the BIFIP and trying to make that more resilient. We've gotten a CAL FIRE grant for $3.1 million and a Coastal Conservancy grant. We have about $500,000 left in that grant bucket. So we've been moving forward with new submittals to try to bring in additional resources to help us continue to scale that work. We've got a submittal in with the Wildlife Conservation Board for $6.4 million, and that's specifically for marine water work. And then we have another proposal we put into the Governor's Office of Planning and Research for $1.7 million. And then also we've been working with California Conservation North Bay for the last couple of years on a forestry core. And so this is funding they get directly from the California Conservation Corps, and it brings crews to the district's lands to help implement our BIFIP. So it's a great lift to our ongoing work. So just kind of some things to call out that we're continuing to work on, that were identified in our resiliency plan, just continuing to maintain our watershed. And one of the issues that we have currently is that the Pine Mountain Fire Road and the loop specifically, we have a major failure on that road. So we're assessing kind of repair opportunities and what needs to be done. Our rangers have identified the need to rehab some of our spring-fed tanks on the watershed to make those more usable in terms of responding to a wildfire. And then continuing to assess opportunities for generators at key pump stations, updating our emergency operations plan. And then this year we launched our Ranger trainee program. So we have 2 additional Rangers coming on to go through that training effort and also add capacity to that work group. So it's kind of the update that we had in terms of wildfire preparedness for you all. And if you have any questions, we'll take those.
Okay, that was a lot. I can imagine there might be some questions. Let's start over here with Matt.
Yeah, Sean, thanks as always, and thanks for all the work that's being outlined here. It certainly is quite a bit. But then again, we have a legitimate need for all that work based on 22,000 acres, not only watershed, but a critical component of the wildfire risk we face here in Marin County, whether it's the built or the unbuilt environment. I'm ecstatic to see the return of prescribed fire to the landscape. 10 acres is a really good opening act, and that I hope we can continue to move forward on. And to put it in perspective, the way we're dealing with acres burned to wildfire in California, every time we get delayed or pushed back, we don't get credit for that. I mean, we're really trying to pay off a ballooning interest payment by paying a fraction of the minimum right now in terms of acres going. So the faster we can accelerate that, the better, especially as we move into next year. Hopefully the funding or the support for the BIFIP is allowing us to take bigger bites at the apple for that. Very much appreciate the public outreach piece, especially what happens after, because we're at a point in time where I think the public's starting to understand the benefits of prescribed fire better, and anything we can do to help move that effort would be great. It actually would be pretty interesting to put something up at some point, maybe even at Sky Oaks, about the naturally occurring fire ecosystem as some sort of educational tool for that, or maybe even on our website too. But the flyer you guys put out for Potrero Meadows was much appreciated. The only other comment I have on this for tonight, I'm really excited to see the evaluation of our facilities, both on the watershed and off the watershed, in terms of defensible space, really making them ready to at least be defended against. Any thoughts or ideas or even efforts to actually evaluate all of our facilities in terms of fire resistive construction, structural hardening, and then being able to inventory or catalog those so that we can start addressing those through CIP projects, starting with the highest risk structures and then moving away to something like a building here?
Yeah, so in the wildfire resiliency study, one of the mitigation actions was identifying hardening as a key component of our CIP. And so we haven't done an assessment of all those facilities and ranking them necessarily, but it's been built into now our CIP evaluation of seeing where we can provide hardening kind of structures when we're replacing infrastructure. So that's kind of a new model that was definitely identified in that.
No, that's good to hear. And I think, the insurance companies have come out with their independent research group that they've identified what would make a hardened structure. And Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority is taking that on and looking at ways they can evaluate structures rapidly, because it's a big lift to do all of those. Especially if you have to do it on an annual basis or biannual basis. But there's some opportunity out there, I think, to leverage the private sector that can come out and evaluate it, turn it around for us pretty quickly.
Ranjit?
Yeah, my thanks as well, Sean, for a great presentation. Yes, as you were talking, I was sort of thinking that so much of the discussion, I would argue, within our community when they think about the water district regards management of our watershed, as you probably know better than anyone, right? And but I would also say, as somebody who was on the other side not too long ago, that the risks of catastrophic wildfire probably have not received as much public attention as other watershed related topics until recently, right? So I'm really glad, and I'm sure the community will increasingly appreciate the efforts that you and your team have been investing in wildfire risk management. Really, we should all be thankful, but we can't get complacent. So I see, you outlined all the additional planning that's taking place related to the water resiliency study and other elements. But I'm curious to know if can you picture a goal of what optimum wildfire management would look like? If so, how far away are we from that? Or is there some sort of a target that you have in your mind as you do all that different planning and fundraising?
It's a big question. So I would say Marin County is doing an exceptional job in working from the parcel out, and land managers are working on the One-TAM collaborative forest health, thinking about the ecological components of it all. And I think it's becoming a model in terms of having MWPA, having Fire Safe Marin, having land managers active and implementing fuel reduction projects and forest restoration projects. The acres that we need to complete are probably expansive and beyond what we really fully understand in terms of, we have 40,000 acres of public land that are in One-TAM. I think there's 118,000 acres of forested lands in Marin County. We're implementing about 1,200 acres on the watershed each year, and we're the biggest land manager implementing work at that scale, right? There's nobody else putting 1,200 acres of veg management on the map right now in Marin County. So that's pretty significant. I think to Matt's point, when we start bringing prescribed fire back on a larger scale as a maintenance regime, that's when we're starting to get closer to having something that's really resilient. And that can, wildfire will occur, and we want our lands to be able to withstand that impact and reduce the spread and slow the rate of spread and make it defensible long term. And so we're working towards a good space with the BIFIP implementation. We're probably a couple, decades away from really having the issue managed well.
Can I just make one comment on that to support what Sean's saying? Is that the folks that are putting a lot of time into this are saying, California is about 100 years behind in terms of being able to catch up with that. The average acreage burn in the States between 8 and 10 million a year, roughly. And in 2021, when we had the really massive year, we were looking at 2 million acres or 3 million acres. So even on a really big year, we're not even close to catching up to what was occurring or reoccurring annually throughout the state.
Jed? Oh, good. Larry?
Thank you. I'm going to repeat what my instrument check pilot said to me after he passed me. Don't embarrass us. Controlled burns, as you well know, the reason there's been a pause is the fire and the attitude of the people towards the fire. Now, I suppose a lot of time has passed here and that people have forgotten, and that's good. So it's a critical thing to do, no question about that. But it also has huge downsides. So, like I say, just don't embarrass us.
Yeah, and I think prescribed fire, the district has a long history of prescribed fire, right? Rangers, decades ago were regularly using prescribed fire on the mountain. It's the fact that we stopped doing that we need to remember has had some pretty significant impacts on our watershed, right? Forest pathogens can be kept somewhat in check by reoccurring fire. Like, we need to understand like the ecological benefits of fire and recognize that if we're not having wildfire naturally occurring, that there is a stewardship responsibility to think about what happens to our landscape when we remove this kind of key ecological driver. So that's, it is a, cautious tale of like how to do it with care and partnership. And that's something I think we're, dedicated to being responsible with how we do it. But I think long term, if we really realize that California and the ecology that we have and the habitat and the complexity and all of that comes from fire being on this landscape.
I'll just conclude by just saying, it is that wildfire risk that that we probably never pay attention enough to, given what is really at stake. Should a really substantial wildfire get loose on the watershed and all the homes and the people who are in harm's way, I think we talk about it as a matter of when will we have some sort of fire. We are definitely doing so much to make sure that the risk is low, that we are able to contain as quickly as can be, and that the intensity of the fire will be as low as we can manage it to be. So at the same time, we'll probably never feel like we did enough. So I think these efforts are incredibly important. And when people, there's been a lot of discussion of rates and what our cost of our water is. Fire safety and public safety is a big part of what we are doing with our rates as well. And I think it's worth it. I guess I would want to just also highlight some questions about the watershed hydrology model. I'm curious, as kind of hydrology is a little bit passion of mine. Will that help us to understand how our watershed will produce water in different climate scenarios? I think that's a really important facet of climate impacts on water production, water supply, and curious if that's going to help us to be better able to model our future.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is yes. We didn't have this, a few years ago, and it was identified as a kind of need in that wildfire resiliency study. We had the drought and then the TUCP process, and that allowed us to develop that. Now we have that as a foundational data set, and it can help us better understand the watershed. So in terms of climate change, we haven't gone that far yet, but it's the foundational data for it.
Great, thank you.
One of the things I forgot to mention about the WAC was that Grant Davis talked about the Mode C radar that's going in for the atmospheric river monitoring. So I think it's about to come up. He was talking months. I think it'll be fully functional. And he was indicating it has something like a 340-degree view or something like that. Not quite 360 because of its altitude, but close. So it definitely has the west side, and which is hopefully the part most of the water is going to come from. So anyway, that should help this too. The hydrology, getting a little more prediction or predictability of what's likely to happen.
Just one other question. It's like I feel like we never get past one big milestone in this district before people are asking us about the next one, which I think is the watershed recreation management plan. Maybe you can just give us a little bit of an update on where we're at and what we should be expecting at our next milestones.
I'll just say that the next watershed committee meeting will have a rec plan update.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. December 12th. Thank you.
Okay. I have nothing else. Okay, are there any public comments?
Yes, we have three. Mr. Phil Sauter, John Lasinski, Larry Minikis, and Ed. Go ahead, Mr. Sauter. Yeah, he jumped on. He jumped on.
Thanks very much for the presentation. It was really interesting. One thing that caught my attention was the degree of cooperation between Marin Water and Marin Fire. I'm fortunate enough to live within walking distance of the Woodacre Ridge, and I can actually go from my house out to Alima along that ridge through the valley. And on my left side will be the Water District watershed, and on my right side will be open space. And I can't tell the difference between the two. So the common interests and the problems, I mean, they just really blend those two agencies together. We had a recent get together at the fire department to talk about a new fire station that's being planned for the valley. There are 6 fire stations currently, and this would be the 7th, or it may replace the 6th. And coming out of that meeting, I was impressed by 2 things. One is the complexity of fighting fire. And I'm sure Director Sansom will understand this. I didn't understand all the moving parts and pieces that have to happen to get a response when there's a serious fire. And I'm really blown away by the complexity. And the other thing that really hit me was the cooperation among the agencies, not only the different fire departments within Marin, but other agencies as well. And it really seems to me that I have a hard time not thinking of Marin Water as the 8th fire station, and why Marin Water and Marin Fire shouldn't be really, really linked. I think that's about it. Is the linkage, I think, is just incredibly important. Oh, the other thing was that in addition to the Grayton tribe, there's also representatives of the Miwok who I went to a presentation a year or so ago, and they've got some helpful hints too in terms of controlled burn and landscape management. So there may be an opportunity to interact with those tribal members too, and we can make connections there if it's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lashinsky, please.
Yeah, hi. That was a great presentation, by the way. I loved it. Covered a lot of issues, and so my first question is, how's your relationship with PG&E? You can make that as short as possible. And number 2, you talked about fire-resistant projects and the hardening of structures throughout the forest system. There was another slide where I saw a metal culvert pipe, a galvanized metal culvert pipe. It looked like it was about 12, 14 inches, sorry, in diameter. And then you talked about hardening of these structures. The best thing to do is to put in some concrete pipe as opposed to unreinforced, as to put in culvert pipe. I mean, that stuff is very flimsy. Is that in the plans at all? Putting in something harder than galvanized metal pipes, which are kind of horrible in a fire. So what do you think about that? Unreinforced concrete pipe to replace them. Isn't that a hardening? Hello?
Okay, thank you for your comment. Is there anything further you'd like to say, sir?
Well, no, I was asking for a response.
This is so when public comment, you just provide a comment, and then I will take that into consideration. But we don't address the comment or the question.
But explain why. It's because it's not agendized. That's the issue here. So we can't respond to non-agendized items. So yeah.
So how can I get a response eventually?
Well, the district will respond directly.
To who?
To you.
Okay. That's polite of you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Larry Minikis, and then Ed.
Yes, good evening, Sean. Thank you for your presentation. It was really excellent. And it's just really encouraging to see how much attention is being put toward fire preparedness. It's needed. We all know that we're going to see fire here and such. I think it would help to have a disclaimer by when we talk about 458 acres of broom removal being completed, that the disclaimer is that we're going to have to go back again in 3 years and rework that. What it doesn't say is that the broom that was removed, likely a lot of it was very, very tall, old, ready to burn. The stuff coming in will be shorter, greener. It won't be as causes much fire issues as what you've removed, but still, you're going to have to keep going over that. And Larry, to prescribe burning, China Camp did a burn last week above Peacock Gap. And so I rode my bike to the point where it was closed, but I could watch what was going on, and it was pretty gusty. And so the fire is burning against the gust. And what they had done this summer is that they'd done all the work up there, all the prep work. So when they put fire there, and there's people there are lines laid, it was impressive to see how slowly, even with winds, how slowly it was burning and how controlled it was. And I'd encourage the board, if it could, to get out to see one of these burns in the future so you get a better sense of this. I should also mention that, and I think I've mentioned this in the past, that back in 2000, I believe it was, when the New Mexico fire got out of control, we were moving towards prescribed burning, and we were doing some small prescribed burn projects. But it was after that there was a lot of fear, and it all came to a stop. And I believe it was something like 2,200, can't quote it, homes that were destroyed in that New Mexico prescribed burn because it was just not planned properly. But the science has come a long way. I've talked to the people in the know on this, and there's just a lot more science there, and it's always complex. You ask anyone in this field, and they'll tell you, anytime you want to do a prescribed burn, it's a very complex process. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ed, please.
Yes, thanks. 2 decades is too long to really get on top of wildfire risk. I believe the district needs to reallocate some budgeted funds from other district activities to make more rapid progress on wildfire risk. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There are no further speakers.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Thank you, Sean. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, which is the award of contract number 2015 for furnishing and delivery of welded steel pipe to underground waterworks.
Hi, good evening, directors. I'm Alex Anaya, the acting director of engineering. This afternoon, we're bringing a contract for the award of welded steel pipe contract for our capital and fire flow projects, and presenting this item tonight is Zach.
Good evening, directors. My name is Zach Talbot. Thank you, Alex. I'm an associate engineer in the design section. This evening, I'll be bringing contract number 2015 to the authorization for the purchase of welded steel pipe. On average, the district orders welded steel pipe for our fire flow and capital projects every 2 years. The last order of welded steel pipe occurred in 2021. Staff keeps track of pipe inventory and compares it to the 2-year CIP and fire flow program, along with current pipeline projects currently in construction, in order to determine our future needs. The district also maintains a minimum pipe inventory for repair for main breaks. Based on projected pipeline needs, it is determined that the district needs to order approximately 19,100 linear feet of pipe ranging in size from 4 to 18 inch. District staff issued a notice to inviting bids on October 6, 2023 for the order of 4, 6, 12, 16, and 18 inch welded pipe. On October 26th, the district received and opened 2 bids for this contract. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder was submitted by Underground Republic Waterworks in the amount of $1,292,427.50. This order will replenish our existing stockpiles for the upcoming capital and fire flow pipeline projects. The cost of the pipe will be capitalized to each specific project as the pipe is withdrawn from inventory for installation. Staff is requesting the board to authorize the general manager to execute contract number 2015 with Underground Republic Waterworks in the amount of $1,292,427.50. Thank you.
Okay, board comments. Larry?
What was the estimate?
$1,292,427.50.
So inflation's slowing down a little, huh?
A little bit, yeah.
Good. And then we're still storing it out at the old corp yard?
Yes, we are out at Pelican Inn, or not Pelican Inn, excuse me, Pelican Way.
Yes. Thanks.
Good. Ranju, Matt? Okay. All right. Do we have any public comments?
There are none.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
Second.
Can we get a roll call, Terry?
Yes. Director Kush,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Sampson,
Aye.
Director Smith,
Aye.
and President Schmidt.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we're on to item number 9, future board and committee meetings.
Yes, good evening. The next committee meeting is the Communications and Water Efficiency meeting, which will be on Wednesday, November 15th. The focus will be the Water Efficiency Master Plan update. Then on November 17th, a couple of days after that, will be the Operations Committee meeting, which the key item will be the recycled water. We are still tentatively, we still would like to have, or still will have a special meeting on Monday, November 27th. I'm still confirming the time though, whether it's 5 or 6:30. The focus for that special meeting is the strategic plan development. Then the following week, Tuesday, December 5th, is the irregular board meeting. And again, we'll follow with another strategic plan development item. For external meetings, the Association of California's Water Agencies Fall Conference is on Tuesday, November 28th through Thursday, November 30th. Then the North Bay Watershed Association will have their monthly meeting on Friday, December 1st. And that is all I have.
The 27th is a board meeting or it's a public meeting?
It's a special board meeting.
Okay.
It's on a Monday.
And are you working on 2024? So I'm starting to look at those dates.
Yes, we are looking at that right now. It's still in progress.
Okay.
When Terry, I thank you. When do you think you'll have 2024 up?
We have it tentatively scheduled to go to the board for December 5th.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. All right. If nothing else, that is all we've got, and we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.